Picture this moment in 2024. You've been saving for a decade. Your salary grew steadily. Your credit is solid. You can afford a mortgage at historical rates. But the house you're looking at costs 8 times your annual income. Not a mansion or beachfront compound, a 3-bedroom ranch 2 counties from your office. The math actually works. Your bank says yes. The market says no. And here's the paradox. Nobody's gambling on this. Nobody's betting the house will double by Tuesday like they did in 2007. This isn't the speculative casino. It's the 2024 shortage. The bottleneck. It's worse because it doesn't feel like a bubble. It feels inevitable. Zoom out to the scale that matters. The United States built 1.7 million housing units in 2023. That sounds robust on the surface, but that same year, households formed at a rate of 1.9 million units. The gap? Not closing. You're watching a dam fill faster than water can spill out. In Canada, the picture becomes even clearer. 460,000 new households in 2023. Housing completions? 242,000. You don't need a PhD in fluid dynamics to know what comes next. The water rises inexorably. The overflow drowns the shoreline. Your shoreline. So why doesn't the industry just build more housing? It's not laziness. It's not capital shortage. It's permission. You want to build 50 apartments in a zone that says only 15 are allowed? You need approval. That approval requires public hearings, staff review, environmental review, traffic analysis, neighbourhood opposition, all of it. 56% of municipalities now cite neighbourhood resistance as a critical constraint on housing. Some call it NIMBY, not in my backyard. The homeowner voting against your future. And they're not crazy. They value stability and quiet. They invested in stable neighbourhoods, but their preference became law. Their law became your lockout. The system works perfectly for them and perfectly against you. But approval is only half the battle. Construction costs have exploded dramatically. Between January 2020 and January 2024, building prices spiked 19.6% overall. That's double the prior 4-year rate. Labour alone, the crane operators, electricians, concrete crews, those wages have risen 5% annually for 3 straight years. The industry is burning through workers faster than training can replace them. 74% of builders reported labour shortages as the main constraint in 2023. 350,000 construction workers go missing monthly from the system. Missing. In 2024 alone, the shortage cost America 19,000 fewer homes and $10.8 billion in lost productivity. You're watching the bottleneck squeeze tighter. Fewer workers, longer timelines, higher bills. The constraint compounds. Why are workers disappearing from construction? The workforce has an age crisis. 20% of construction workers are over 55. They're retiring now. The pipeline behind them is dangerously thin. Young people aren't rushing into trades at all. Wages rose 5% yearly, but housing costs, where these workers might live, rose way faster than wages. Your electrician can't afford a house in the city where the skyscrapers need electrical work, so she moves to rural areas, or leaves the trade entirely, or doesn't have kids because she can't afford the household setup. The system optimizes its own extinction. It prices out the exact labour it needs. Demand pulls up, supply can't follow. The gap widens year after year. Let's measure what we're not building right now. Estimates of the cumulative housing shortage in America range from 1.2 to 3.2 million units total. That's not the annual gap. That's the accumulated backlog. The structural deficit since the 2008 crash. Years of chronic underbuilding. Years of demand chasing constrained supply endlessly. Australia faced an identical wall last year. In 2024, it completed 177,000 dwellings. Underlying demand, 223,000. A gap of 46,000 in just 1 year. In a country of 26 million, that gap compounds. 1 year of shortage becomes 5 years. 5 years becomes a generation locked out of ownership, locked out of stability, locked out of the ability to plant roots without mortgaging your entire life to do it. The impact is visible in numbers that matter to you, personally. Housing affordability in America plummeted from 150 in 2021 to the mid-80s by 2024. That's not a dip in the market, that's a cliff. For renters specifically, the pain is acute and worsening. 22.6 million renter households are cost-burdened overall. Burdened means paying more than 30% of your income on rent. Over 12 million pay more than half their income. Half. Your entire income spent on shelter. No money left for food cost increases. No buffer for emergencies. Gen Z renters? 58.6% are rent-burdened. More than half your generation paying maximum rent just to stay housed. And the UK, Canada, Australia? Same collapse. Affordability indices fell in parallel. You're not alone in this, but that doesn't make your situation any less dire. Here's the darkest data point of all. America's fertility rate hit 1.6 babies per woman, a record low. Not because women don't want children fundamentally, but because housing costs make children into math problems. Raise a kid on your renter's income and you face daycare costs, school supplies, college savings for later. Now add rent that takes 50% of your monthly check. The equation breaks completely. You do the calculation and pause. You postpone marriage. You downsize expectations. Or you don't form the household at all. 2 million more households would have formed since 2020 had family formation rates held to pre-pandemic trends. 2 million. That's an entire city, a labour force, a generation of taxpayers and workers who aren't forming families because the entry cost, housing, became a barrier higher than age or money could overcome. Now here's the critical inversion between then and now. In 2007, housing prices were insane because of pure speculation. Mortgage-backed securities bundled risky debt into AAA-rated packages sold worldwide. Flippers bought 6 condos, expecting each to double within a year. Banks lent to almost anyone. The mania was the mechanism. The bubble was the problem. But you can't have a bubble without excess. Excess requires irrational buyers. This is structurally different. Today's buyers are rational. They're paying because supply is frozen hard. You're paying for living in a city where permits take years to approve, where zoning bans apartments explicitly, where labour costs spiral upward. That's not a bubble, it's a bottleneck. Bottlenecks don't pop spectacularly, they squeeze tighter, relentlessly tighter, until something breaks. So buyers get pushed down or out of the market entirely. They become renters instead. Renters tear downward relentlessly. You can't afford a one-bedroom apartment? You rent a studio. You can't afford a studio? You share. You share a bed in a cramped space with a stranger because the shortage cascaded down to your income level. Rent inflation in major US metros has outpaced wage growth consistently since 2015. 9 years of losing ground. Landlords can raise rent because the alternative, vacancy, is economically worse than aggressive extraction. They know you have nowhere to go. Supply is frozen. Demand piles up at their door. They raise rent, you pay higher or move to smaller places. Or move to an exurban nightmare commute. Or rack up credit card debt to make ends meet. The bottleneck distributes itself down the income chain systematically. Not everyone breaks at the same pressure point, but everyone bends under the weight. So why haven't governments simply fixed this crisis? Because the people who vote are the exact people who benefit from the freeze. Homeowners are a dominant voting bloc in all democracies. They've got equity in existing homes. They've got quiet neighbourhoods they prefer. Their property taxes are fixed. A new apartment building next door threatens all of that. Threatens noise. Threatens parking. Threatens the core myth that their home will only appreciate forever. Politicians hear homeowners loudly. Homeowners vote consistently. Young renters? Potential home buyers? Construction workers? They don't vote at the same rates, or they're in the wrong precinct, or they know their voice doesn't matter in their own housing market. So zoning stays restrictive, permits stay slow. The political economy of this shortage guarantees it stays frozen for another generation, unless something extraordinary changes the incentives. Your housing minister isn't ignoring the crisis, they're responding. Precisely to the voters with housing equity. The math works for them. The consequences reach into futures you can't see in a monthly budget spreadsheet. Young people are statistically more likely to delay marriage significantly, delay childbearing substantially, live with parents much longer. Not because they want to, because they can't afford the sequence anymore. The traditional sequence was finish school, get a job, rent independently, save for a down payment, buy a house, get married, have kids, build a life. The housing bottleneck has broken that sequence completely. Step 1 fails. Everything after that collapses. So you live with mum at 28. You meet fewer people who aren't already coupled. Your generation pools resources with roommates, not future spouses. Fertility craters nationwide. The US fertility rate of 1.6 isn't just a statistic. It's a structural break in how American lives unfold generationally. And it's happening across all developed economies simultaneously. The bottleneck is global. The consequences are irreversibly generational. Housing shortages don't squeeze evenly across income levels. They crush downward ruthlessly. Median rent burden for lower income renters, those earning $30,000 to $45,000 annually, sits at 70% of income. 70%. That leaves $30 for every 100 earned for food, for transport, for healthcare, for everything else. Meanwhile, homeowners with paid-off mortgages are literally printing wealth. Your house appreciates 10% a year because supply is constrained artificially. You didn't accomplish anything special. You got lucky about when you bought, or your parents bankrolled your purchase, or you were born into ownership. The shortage has become the inequality engine directly. It concentrates wealth upward systematically, locks out the young and low income downward, uses the political system to keep the valve shut permanently. Black and Hispanic renters carry even higher burdens overall. 57% of black renters are cost-burdened, compared to 46% of white renters statistically. The bottleneck is a racial aperture. It lets some through. It stops others cold. Some jurisdictions have begun to break the pattern slightly. California, Minneapolis, Oregon have reformed zoning to allow duplexes or modest multifamily buildings by right, without discretionary neighborhood approval. Federal grants now reward cities that reduce permitting timelines aggressively. Some states have capped the review process at 60 days hard. These reforms are marginal relative to the problem. They're not trivial compared to nothing, but they're also nowhere near enough to close a 3.2 million unit cumulative deficit. The shortage is so embedded in planning codes, political culture, wealth concentration, that reforms move the needle glacially. A city might go from 12 years to 9 years to approve a multifamily project. That's better than before. It's not transformative. The bottleneck loosens fractionally. The queue still stretches to the horizon. Your generation is still waiting. And time matters crucially when you're young. Delay housing formation by 5 years. You deleted compound wealth, lost years of family formation, rebuilt your entire life script. What you own is what you control in capitalism. The housing shortage isn't a temporary pricing phenomenon at all. It's a hard constraint on the productive capacity of developed economies. It locks workers into suboptimal locations permanently. It discourages family formation reliably. It concentrates wealth upward structurally and freezes mobility downward deterministically. It's rational from the perspective of the homeowner voting to preserve neighborhood character, but it's catastrophic from the perspective of the 28-year-old who can't form a household without 4 roommates. The bottleneck reveals the central tension of property-based capitalism perfectly. Your freedom to own and protect your home is literally someone else's inability to own and protect theirs. That's not poetic rhetoric, it's accounting. A balance sheet where some balance and others go bankrupt. So we return to where we began exactly. You're saving diligently. You're ready to buy. The math works rationally. But the doors stay locked regardless. Not because the market is irrational, but because supply is frozen politically. Because zoning codes reward existing homeowners. Because construction costs have spiraled upward while labour has evaporated completely. Because the political system is optimised for those who already own. And because nobody is guaranteeing that your future household gets to form at all. The housing crisis isn't a bubble, it's a bottleneck. Bottlenecks don't pop explosively. They persist indefinitely. They squeeze tighter. And in squeezing year after year, they reshape who gets to build a future at all.